My fiancé and sister bankrupted me, leaving me to live in my car. Then my millionaire client helped me. Welcome back with a new real shock story. Before we start, comment and tell me which city you're watching from. At the end, don't forget to subscribe and rate it from 0 to 10. Let's enjoy the story, everyone.
I still remember the night I realized everything was gone. Not just my money. Everything. My savings, my credit, my apartment, my future, my trust. All of it shattered in the space of a single evening. It started with a single phone call. I was parked outside a gas station, half asleep in the driver's seat of my car. I hadn't eaten a real meal in 2 days, and the engine was off because I couldn't afford the gas to keep it warm. My phone buzzed, and for a second, I hoped maybe, just maybe, it was someone asking if I was okay. But it wasn't. It was a bank alert. My last $47 had been withdrawn. Not by me, but by someone who knew my password. That was the moment it hit me. This wasn't just bad luck. This wasn't just life being unfair. This was personal. You see, a few months ago, I had a life. I had love. I had a job, a home, and a future. I was building brick by brick. I was engaged to someone I trusted more than anyone. At least, I thought I did. And my sister? She was the one person I believed would always have my back. I mean, we grew up surviving everything together. The idea that the two people I loved most would be the ones to rip my world apart. No one prepares you for that kind of betrayal. I didn't end up in my car overnight. It happened slowly, quietly, and in ways I didn't even see coming. At first, it was just little things, missing money here and there, excuses that sounded just convincing enough. My fiancé had access to my accounts just in case. My sister needed help covering bills, and I didn't think twice. That's what family does, right? They lean on each other, they share, they trust. But I should have asked more questions. I should have looked closer, because while I was busy building a life, they were busy draining it. And when it finally hit me, when I realized the people I trusted the most had used me, robbed me, and left me with nothing, it was too loud. That my landlord had already changed the locks. My job had already let me go because I was too emotionally wrecked to keep up. My accounts were empty. My name was ruined. And the worst part? They didn't even deny it. They told me I was being dramatic, that I'd be fine, that I always land on my feet. But they knew. They knew I had nowhere to go. They knew I had no one left. I started sleeping in my car. I parked behind a 24-hour laundromat because the lights made me feel safer. I kept my phone on airplane mode to save battery. I washed in gas station bathrooms. I applied for jobs using public Wi-Fi and $8 menu burgers to stretch what little money I could find. And just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, I met someone. Not someone I wanted to meet, someone I had to work for. A new client. Rich, powerful, intimidating. The kind of person who walks into a room and doesn't need to introduce himself. I was desperate for work, and he needed someone who could keep quiet, follow instructions, and not ask questions. I needed the money. I took the job. But what I didn't know was that this client wasn't like anyone I'd ever worked for. He saw something in me. Maybe it was the way I flinched when people talked too loudly. Maybe it was the way I never looked him in the eye. Maybe it was the way I was trying so hard to pretend I had it all together when everything inside me was falling apart. He didn't ask questions, not at first, but he watched. He noticed. And one day, everything changed. What he did for me, what happened after that, still feels like something out of a dream. Or maybe a nightmare. I don't even know anymore. All I know is that the people who hurt me thought I was finished. But they were wrong. The story I'm about to tell you isn't just about betrayal. It's about survival. It's about what happens when the people who are supposed to love you the most to become the reason you lose everything. And it's about what happens when the most unexpected person walks into your life and changes everything. But trust me, this story doesn't go the way you think it does. Would you forgive the people who destroyed your life if they came back begging? Or would you let the past burn and walk away with everything they tried to steal? Keep watching. You're not going to believe what happened next. I had a solid job managing accounts for high-end clients. Nothing glamorous, but enough to feel proud of what I was building. I wasn't rich, but I was stable. I was independent. I paid my bills, stacked some savings, and for the first time in years, I wasn't constantly checking my bank account in fear. And then there was him, James, my fiancé. He was charming in a way that made you feel safe, like everything would be okay as long as he was in the room. He wasn't the flashiest guy, but he knew how to talk to people. He knew how to make you feel like you were the only person in the world who mattered. We met at a friend's wedding. One dance turned into a date. One date turned into 3 years of shared holidays, late-night grocery runs, and morning routines. We were planning a life together. Our names were on the lease, our vision board taped to the fridge. Our dog's collar had both our numbers on the tag. I really believed we were building something real. And then there was my sister, Kiara. We were close. Too close, if I'm being honest. She had always been the kind of person who could make you laugh even when everything was falling apart. We'd been through hell together growing up. Things most people never talk about. Foster homes, food pantries, sleeping in motels when mom disappeared for weeks at a time. We survived all of it. So when she came to me needing help, of course I gave it to her. Rent here, a car repair there. I didn't keep track. I never expected to. She was my blood. We were survivors, right? And survivors stick together. But looking back now, I can't help but wonder if they'd been planning it from the start. I didn't see the red flags because I was too busy feeling lucky. I thought I'd escaped the chaos I was born into. I thought I'd finally created something stable, safe, a life that made sense. And maybe that's why it hit me so hard when it all fell apart, because I truly believed I was finally free from the kind of betrayal that shaped my childhood. At first, it was small things. James asking to use my card because his paycheck was delayed. Kiara staying with us for a week that somehow turned into 4 months. Packages arriving that I didn't remember ordering. Charges on my account that I wrote off as mistakes. But every time I asked questions, they had answers. Smooth, convincing, just calm enough to make me feel like I was overreacting. And the worst part? I believed them. That's what keeps me up at night even now. Not just the betrayal itself, but how easy it was for them to do it. How easily I trusted them. How I didn't even suspect the truth until I was already standing in the wreckage. There was one night in particular, still haunts me. I came home late from a client meeting. The house was too quiet. James was in the living room, Kiara in the kitchen. I walked in on a silence that didn't feel right. You know that heavy, loaded silence when two people are talking about you and suddenly stop? Yeah, that's silence. I didn't say anything then. I laughed it off. I went to bed. But my gut had already started whispering, and I ignored it. A week later, my account was drained. Every last cent gone. I called the bank in a panic, convinced there was a fraud alert. They walked me through the transactions. They weren't random. They were specific, purposeful, familiar IP addresses, devices connected from my own Wi-Fi. That's when it clicked. At my passwords, my login details, only 2 people had access. I confronted them. I was shaking. My voice cracked mid-sentence. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. James didn't even flinch. Kiara rolled her eyes. They said I was being dramatic, that I was too emotional, that it was just a misunderstanding. But I saw it in their eyes. That flicker of recognition, that flash of guilt that disappears as quickly as it comes. They knew what they did. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd say sorry. Admit it. Help me fix it. But no. Instead, they doubled down. James left that night and took the car. Kiara packed her things in silence and disappeared the next morning. I didn't even get a goodbye. And just like that, I was alone. Within 3 days, I was behind on rent. A week later, I was out of my apartment. My employer, already noticing my sudden dip in performance, let me go. I didn't even have time to explain. I was spiraling so fast, I could barely breathe. No one picked up when I called. Not friends, not distant family, not even co-workers I used to eat lunch with every day. I guess when you fall, people watch, but they don't catch. I packed everything I could fit into my car. What little I had left. Some clothes, a box of journals, a cracked laptop, a bag of toiletries, and one blanket I'd had since I was a kid. And that became my new home. I slept with the doors locked and a knife under the seat. I kept pretending it was temporary, that someone would call, that something would change, that I'd wake up and realize this was just some cruel nightmare. But it wasn't. This was real. And rock bottom? It doesn't come with a warning. It's quiet. It creeps up on you. One day you're sipping coffee with the love of your life, and the next, you're brushing your teeth in a gas station sink, trying to convince yourself this isn't who you are. I had no idea what to do. No plan. No trust left in anyone. Until that one job came in. That one client. He was the last person I expected to save me. And he didn't, at first. But he saw me. Not the broken version of me, not the girl living out of her car. He saw the fighter beneath it all. And what happened next? It wasn't redemption. It was something darker, deeper. Something that would test everything I thought I knew about loyalty, justice, and revenge. I didn't want to take the job. I almost didn't. Not because I had options, I didn't, but because something about it felt off. Not illegal exactly, but strange. Too quiet, too private, too clean. The kind of job you don't advertise, the kind you hear about in whispers. He was a millionaire. One of those people you Google and find almost nothing. No social media, no press, no noise. Just enough public information to prove he existed. Business filings, real estate holdings, a few silent investments. But beyond that? Silence. His assistant contacted me through a freelance app. The job description was vague. Private financial organizing and discretion required. I didn't think they'd pick me. I was a mess. I still had dirt under my fingernails from sleeping in parking lots. I'd borrowed Wi-Fi from a library just to upload my resume. My clothes didn't fit right anymore. My face looked hollow. But they didn't ask for a video interview, just a background check. And I passed. Somehow. The meeting was scheduled in an upscale part of the city. One of those gated properties tucked behind rows of tall trees. I pulled up in my car, still trying to wipe the fog off the inside of the windshield. My hands were shaking. My stomach was empty. The house was silent, modern, cold. When the assistant let me in, I felt like I'd stepped into a different universe. White walls, minimal furniture, not a speck of dust, like no one really lived there. And then he appeared. Tall, quiet, mid-50s maybe. He looked me over once and didn't say a word about the state I was in. Not my wrinkled clothes, not my tired eyes, not the way I couldn't quite meet his gaze. Instead, he just nodded to a chair, handed me a stack of files and said, "Start with these." That was it. I worked in silence for 4 hours straight, sorting, inputting, cross-referencing files that were, if I'm being honest, way above my pay grade. Offshore accounts, holdings in countries I couldn't pronounce, shell companies linked to foundations and charities that didn't seem to actually do anything. It felt like laundering. Maybe I was just paranoid. But I didn't ask. Because I couldn't afford to ask. Because I needed that money like oxygen. At the end of the day, he handed me an envelope with more cash than I'd seen in months. No questions, no signature. Just a quiet, "Come back tomorrow." And I did. I went back the next day, and the next, and again the next week. And slowly, things started to shift. He never asked about me, but he watched. He noticed when I flinched at loud noises. He noticed I never answered my phone. He noticed that I always left through the side entrance and never took lunch breaks. One night, I stayed late, lost in spreadsheets. I hadn't realized it was nearly midnight. When I stood up, my legs nearly gave out. I hadn't eaten since morning. He walked in, silent as always, and set a plate of food on the table. He didn't say a word, just looked at me, then walked away. That moment, it undid something in me. A simple gesture, sure, but after weeks of feeling invisible, that plate of food hit harder than any apology I'd never received, and I began to trust him. Not completely, not the way I trusted James or Kiara, not the blind, naive kind of trust, but a cautious trust. Like maybe this man, this complete stranger, saw me, the real me, the me no one else had ever cared to look for. Then came the night everything changed. I was in the study, sorting documents, when I opened a folder that wasn't meant for me. At least I don't think it was. Inside were photos of James and Kiara together. Not just together, but laughing, touching, sick, loose in a way that made my stomach twist. It wasn't just betrayal, it was proof. The date stamp? A month before they destroyed me. Another photo, the two of them walking into a bank together. Another, James handing over a folder with my name on it. My hands went cold. My heart slammed against my ribs. There were notes in the margins, names, account numbers, legal terms I barely understood. I felt sick. My ears were ringing. I couldn't even form thoughts, just fragments. How? Why? How did he have these? Who is this man? What does he want with me? I didn't hear him come in. "You weren't supposed to see that," he said quietly, voice low but calm. I turned around, heart in my throat. He didn't look angry, not even surprised, just expectant, like he knew this moment would come. And then he said something I'll never forget. "They're not done with you, Alec, but neither am I." My knees buckled, because in that moment, I realized two things. One, this man knew everything. And two, my story wasn't over. It was just beginning. I didn't sleep that night. I drove around aimlessly, turning down dark streets with no destination in mind. My thoughts were spiraling, pounding inside my skull like a storm that wouldn't let up. My hands wouldn't stop trembling on the wheel. He knew. He knew everything. He had photos, documents, timelines. He had seen what James and Kiara did before I even realized it was happening. And the worst part, I had no idea why. Why would a man like that, a millionaire client, a stranger, be tracking people like them? What did he want from me? What did he want from them? I couldn't shake the words he said. They're not done with you, Alec. But neither am I. It played in my head like a threat, or a promise. I couldn't decide which. The next morning, I showed up at his house, exhausted, hollow-eyed, starving for answers. I didn't even knock. His assistant saw me through the camera and buzzed me in without a word. It was like they were expecting me. When I stepped into his study, he was already there. Calm. Silent. He slid a thick envelope across the table. Inside, more documents. Legal ones this time. Evidence. Wire transfers. Identity theft. Accounts in my name opened with forged signatures. Their signatures. He wasn't just watching them. He was building a case. I was going to give this to the authorities, he said, voice low and measured. But now I'm giving it to you. I stood there, frozen. Why me? I whispered, barely able to speak. He didn't answer immediately. He just looked at me with something in his eyes that was sharp. Not pity, not kindness, something deeper. Like he understood exactly what it felt like to be torn apart from the inside out. You know what they took, he said. You get to decide what happens next. That was the moment everything shifted inside me. Up until that point, I had been surviving, hiding, pretending I didn't care, telling myself I'd move on, rebuild, heal. But the truth? I was angry. I was angry that they'd stolen not just my money, but my sense of safety, my sense of self. They didn't just hurt me, they erased me, and no one was going to fix it. Not the police, not the banks, not the system. I looked down at the papers, then back at him. What do you want me to do? I asked. He smiled, but it wasn't warm. That's the beauty of it, he said. I don't want anything. But you? You've got a fire in you, Alec. You just needed a match. That night, I started making calls. I filed reports, sent letters, shared documents with investigators. I contacted every agency I could think of. Fraud divisions, consumer protection offices, even some of the clients I used to work with who had legal connections. Doors that had been shut for months started cracking open. But the most surreal part? Watching it all unfold. Watching James's face when he got served legal papers. Watching Kiara's name show up in civil filings. Watching the life they built on top of the ashes of mine start to fall apart. It wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming myself. But it wasn't over yet. One night, about 3 weeks after the first wave of filings, I got a message. No name, no number, just 3 words. You think you won. My chest went cold. They were still watching me, still trying to scare me. I drove to the millionaire's house. I didn't care that it was almost midnight. He answered the door himself. I didn't have to explain. I just showed him the message. He looked at it once and then said, "You're not done. Not yet." Then he handed me a key to an apartment, fully paid for, 6 months' rent, no strings attached. I couldn't speak. My throat closed. Why? I finally managed to ask. And this time, He told me. Because someone had done the same for him once, years ago, when his life had been ripped apart by people he trusted, when the system failed him too. He never forgot, and now he was passing it forward. He said it wasn't charity. It was survival. It was justice. And that justice doesn't always wear a badge or carry a gavel. Sometimes it drives a beat-up car, wears second-hand clothes, and fights like hell just to wake up and try again. The apartment was small, nothing fancy, just one bedroom, plain white walls, and creaky floors. But to me, it felt like a palace. It had heat, running water, a door that locked, a bed I didn't have to park beside. I stood in the middle of it that first night, surrounded by silence, and cried harder than I ever had in my life. Not because I was sad, but because for the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was disappearing. I felt real again. I stayed in that apartment for the full 6 months. Got a new job. Nothing corporate or glamorous, just something steady, with people who didn't ask questions about where I'd been. I kept to myself. I walked everywhere, saved every penny, and every now and then
To check the case file.
James and Kiara's world slowly unraveled. Not just because of the financial fraud, but because they turned on each other. She blamed him. He blamed her. The lies they built collapsed under the weight of their own greed. The courts didn't even need much from me after a while. The paper trail spoke louder than I ever could. Funny how quickly people fall apart when their masks slip. I never saw them again. Not in person. Kiara tried to message me once, one of those long, rambling texts that shift between apology and manipulation. She said she didn't mean for it to go that far, said she missed me, that she was just desperate. I read it, then deleted it. I didn't need her words. James never reached out. He knew better. And the millionaire? I never used his name, never asked for details about his past, and he never volunteered them. He wasn't trying to be a hero. He didn't want anything in return. He just wanted to give someone else the thing he never had when his life was destroyed, a second chance. And that's exactly what he gave me. I think about that a lot. How sometimes it's not the people closest to you who save you. Sometimes it's a stranger. Someone who sees your pain and doesn't turn away. Someone who gives you space to heal, even if they don't understand every detail. People ask me now, how did you survive that? And the truth is, I didn't. Not the old me. She died the moment I realized the two people I loved most were the ones who set the fire. But something stronger rose out of her ashes, not fearless, but smarter, sharper, boundaried. Someone who doesn't beg for love, who doesn't explain her worth, who walks away when the energy feels off. Someone who can sleep in a car and still wake up fighting. I never went back to my old life. I didn't want to. That version of me was so busy making others comfortable, she forgot to protect herself. This new version, she's not afraid of being alone. She's afraid of losing herself again. So I stay low now. Quiet. I don't tell many people what happened, but I carry it with me, always. Not as a scar, but as armor. I know now that survival isn't just about food or shelter. It's about truth. About facing the ugliest parts of your story and still choosing to rise. And here's the thing no one tells you about betrayal. It doesn't break you all at once. It chips away at your reality, one moment at a time, until you're standing in the rubble, wondering when it all started. But the moment you stop trying to glue the old pieces back together, that's when you start to rebuild. And you build stronger, wiser, not harder, but real. Now, I walk through life with open eyes. And when I see someone struggling, someone who looks the way I did when I was hiding in my car, I don't look away, because I remember. And I hope that maybe, one day, I can be that person for someone else, the way he was for me. Because at the end of the day, this story, it's not about revenge. It's not about justice in the way the movies show it. It's about reclaiming what they tried to take, my voice. They left me with nothing. And somehow, I still came back with everything. So let me leave you with this. What would you do if the people you trusted most destroyed you? Would you forgive? Would you fight? Or would you disappear? Because I didn't. I survived. And now, I choose who gets to stay in my life. And who doesn't even get a memory.